Welcome back. President Obama has a pending executive order regarding new gun legislation. One requirement he wants is to have entered into NCIS all medical documentation of anyone who has been diagnosed with any mental disorder, depression, etc. Critics fear the order would instruct law enforcement officers to enter the homes of these individuals and confiscate weapons. Bob, is that what we're trying to do?
I tell you, I think that the clamor has been so loud and so long about some kind of enhanced gun regulations that this is his only answer that he can come up with, that he believes makes sense. And I'm going to point out, and I know that we'll have a discussion about this, but I want to point out the mental health aspect of this, okay? It is not so much as true. He will use Social Security Administration records to during background checks to see if anybody who has a mental health issue who may be on Social Security will not be able to go buy a firearm. All right, but that's not what bothers me the most. What bothers me the most is that if Ryan, 20 years ago, you went to see a psychiatrist because you felt a little depressed and things were kind of out of whack in your life, and you were trying to, okay.
Or
now
family therapist.
Right, and nothing came of it.
Yeah.
Nothing came of it. No, I mean, even if there was medication, still nothing came of it. After 6 months, you didn't go back. You were fine. Things turned around in your life. Everything's great.
Yeah.
Now, 21 years later, you want to go try to buy a handgun.
Can't.
You can't.
Because of
Yeah, well, I think the bigger issue, there's one very big issue here first.
You don't think that's a problem, though?
It is a problem.
Okay.
I haven't even spoken yet, Bob.
All right. Well, I know where
Give me
you're
a
going,
chance.
Tom. I'm just
Oh, you may not know where I'm going.
maybe I don't. Pretty sure.
Democratic Congressman Patrick Kennedy of Rhode Island, of the Kennedy family. I heard him speak recently, and this is a concern of mine. I've dealt with many people in the mental health field, and part of it is just simply to characterize people with mental illnesses as violent is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
And it puts a stigma on people who, this involves health care issues, which again, they have trouble getting health care. And the Republican position on the gun control stuff has mainly been deal with mental health. This is what Obama's responding to in a certain way. It was demanded by the Republicans, and he also was doing, they say, you need to enforce the laws on the books. That's exactly what he's proposing here.
Yeah, so
He's doing
this-
extra people to do the background checks, already on the books. He's also closing
That's
loopholes.
200 of them.
There's also
At least he's
closing
creating jobs.
loopholes. People are exempted if they're a trust or a corporation to buy guns. A few years ago, there were 900 guns bought that way. There are 90,000 now.
Yeah.
And people are forming a trust who are no more than you and I going and say we're a trust. We buy a bunch of guns to give to people. They may be the criminals.
All right,
He is,
I'll
wait a
ask-
minute. He
This is legitimate stuff he's doing.
So let's back
It's
up
what-
for a
what
second.
he's been asked to
It
do
is
by the
not-
Go ahead,
Republicans.
Jim.
It is not a reaction to the Republicans. What he is doing is he is looking desperately anywhere he can to find some sort of legacy for an otherwise unremarkable president.
No,
I don't know if it's
I
that.
think
I
it
don't
has nothing to
I
do
don't know
with
if
it.
I
It's
believe that, because if you think about the number of shootings that's happened since, 8 years ago, so we have the worst of the worst that I could think. I mean, there's all terrible shootings, but the day back in December of 2012, I was in my office in D.C. I think it was December 16th, and I watched in real time, we all did, the Sandy Hook shooting. First graders being shot up by a
kid
that-
who stole
his
guns
mom's
from his
guns
moms
and
who
went-
bought them legally.
No, but I'm saying,
Yes, exactly.
It was a horrible. That
do you
was
stop
horrible.
that?
That's the point.
But then you look
that's
at
what you can.
Aurora. You look at Gabby Gifford, who was there with the president. I think I think the president finally has said.
San Bernardino.
All these things are happening. What can I do with my limited constitutional power? What can I do to leave something behind that we can stop this? But
Yeah, the
here's
public
Didn't
is
Jim just say
demanding
that, a
this.
legacy?
Right.
The public is
well,
demanding
right.
this.
Jim said that, and you're right. The public is demanding this.
83% of gun owners in the latest public policy poll from November, this is a reputable group, 83% of gun owners want all sales to have background checks. All sales of guns.
I have no problem
I
with
think universal
background checks.
background
on sales
72% of NRA,
guns. I have
then
no
why do
problem
we
with
not
that.
have them?
The problem that I have again.
Why aren't
and
they
I will go
closing the
back-
gun show loophole, for one example?
The president doesn't need Congress's approval to clarify existing law.
No, he doesn't, that's what he's
Right.
doing.
Right. But here's the issue, and the
So what's the
Republicans know
problem?
this, is that there's a funding issue. So will the Republicans fund these initiatives? But an executive.
It's what they've been asking for, to
Yeah.
enforce the laws and the books. This has been going on for
Sure.
years.
But
It's
let me ask you
insane.
this.
It's the same discussion for years.
There's an argument that what the executive orders that he's pushing through, and there's a highlight, like you mentioned, there's a background checks, more processors, there's the reporting of lost and stolen weapons, and
Yeah.
the smart gun technology,
Yes.
and then there's the gun sales. And the heart of his executive order was for the ATF to tighten the restrictions on the individuals engaged in the business of selling firearms. So, how much of these executive orders will it be negligible? Will it really help? Will it save one life? Because I know the president said if it saves one life, then we have succeeded. But
It will.
who are people that go out and commit these
You
mass
don't know,
atrocities?
Tom.
They're criminals.
Yes,
You
we
can't-
do.
you can't
Yes,
say-
we do know.
No, we don't know.
Yes, we do know.
How do you know it, Willie?
Because
You
they have
just
done
signed the
studies
executive
all
order
over the
yesterday.
world for decades. The number of guns is almost always in direct
Baltimore City had
correlation-
the highest
correlation
murder
to the number
rate
of killings,
in,
period.
in their history this past year,
Yes.
with 344
Yes.
murders in Baltimore City.
Yes.
Chicago's worse than that. You know, that is not, whatever Obama wants to do or whatever anybody wants to do when it comes to stricter gun laws will not stop these violent criminals who get guns illegally from getting guns illegally and doing violent
Yes,
acts.
it will. It will.
But how?
And
It will
I mean,
stop you. You start, the market shrinks. It gets
doesn't
more and
shrink.
more
We want people to
difficult.
have
it goes
less
underground.
guns?
It doesn't.
But it's
it
still,
doesn't
I mean,
shrink.
it doesn't,
No.
look at the countries around the world.
Yeah.
There is ample evidence.
The ones
for-
with the
for
strictest gun
decades,
laws have
like-
the most crime.
England?
But they have a lot of knifings.
Australia does.
Yeah.
We're talking
No, but-
about gun crimes here. Don't go off onto knifing.
Oh, so it's okay to knife someone to death, but not
No,
shoot someone
it's
to
not.
death.
This is about guns. Guns are far more effective at killing people in an instant
It's
than
true.
any knife is.
And there's no
And they
statistic-
will tell you that, God, their statistics
No,
up
no, I
the
was going to say
wazoo.
you're right in that respect.
It's been on the
However-
books. They will not even let the CDC study it.
Okay.
Our
Tom,
congressmen, because they darn well know what they're going to say.
I hear what you're saying, but my
We all
point-
know this. It's
I hear,
reason.
I hear your
Simple
points, and I respect
reason.
that. But let me ask you this: will these restrictions or will these executive orders save one more life?
Yes.
Based upon what?
Maybe.
Based
We don't
upon simply, if you got the background checks going now 24 hours a day, they're not. Because they don't have enough people, because our wonderful Congress will not fund things.
But how many
It's how they
times-
do things. We all know how this happens. Come on.
I don't agree that
And they're
going
going to find somebody, another background check, who's not going to get a gun.
Post hoc ergo propter hoc.
No, no, no.
Follows
no.
this, therefore because of this, is
No.
oftentimes wrong.
No. This country has more guns than any in the whole world.
Which is
Thank
which
God.
one of the
Constitutional
reasons
And that's
that
why
we
we
never
have
get
one of the highest
invaded
crime rates.
by anybody.
We don't get invaded because we have nuclear. God, come on.
Come on. Nah,
Who's
you
gonna
know,
invade our
gonna
shores
push,
with
No one's going to
guns?
push a nuclear weapon. It doesn't matter. The
Yes,
bottom
what do you
line
think
is that
about North
anybody who
Korea?
invades this country will have a gunfight at every single street.
No,
Yes,
no,
they
but
will.
they're not
No one will
invading
ever
our
be able to do
country. Oh, come on. Give me a break.
All
They'll
right.
set
Well,
off
the
a
Mexicans
nuclear
are invading
device.
it. We know that.
I just have a problem.
When they
with
set
this.
off
They
a
bring
nuclear
guns with them.
device
They
in
bring drugs
Manhattan,
with them.
guns
Let's
are
bring
not going
guns.
to stop
Right.
it.
Bring
I'm
them.
sorry.
I think that's a little bit of a superfluous argument, but
Guns are not going to stop a
Okay,
nuclear
well,
bomb.
I-
going
So,
off
so
in
one less
Manhattan.
gun could
Give me a
stop one
break.
less murder until that person
ridiculous.
picks up a rock and kills him.
but
Or
Tom,
knife.
but Tom,
It's all
let me,
about
let
the
me just
guns.
clarify. But you want
Or a pressure
Is
cooker.
you
about
want
the gun.
you want
Baseball
law-abiding citizens to be able to have the right to legally buy a gun.
Yes.
Okay, but and we all agree at this table.
Well, to legally buy a gun after many, many background checks, making
Many.
sure
Many, many.
everybody, you make it very hard to get a gun.
Oh, okay.
I don't think
And
you
very
make it
hard,
very
to, the guns that are involved
in
now.
Maryland, it's hard to get a gun.
It is.
Yeah.
And what happened in Baltimore recently is an anomaly.
Why is that?
In New York City.
Because criminals are getting guns and killing
New
people.
York City. How many people live in New York City? You tell me.
Over 1 million people.
I don't know how many.
8.4 million
Millions.
people.
No, I didn't know it was that
They have
much.
less murders than Baltimore. Now, they have gun laws and stuff in New York,
Right.
and they're very successful.
They also have stop and frisk.
They've kind of cut back on some of
Well,
that
I
stuff.
understand that, but,
But that has
and the
nothing,
rate's
They
going
have-
back up.
that
had
has
Rudy
nothing
Giuliani.
to do with the gun question. Stop
It has
and frisk.
everything to do with the gun
What?
question. Because again, and call it profiling, call it whatever you want, but when you see somebody when you see something, say something. You've got
Well, exactly.
to be.
What's that got to do with people shooting people with guns?
But would you agree
They're
that?
concealed weapons. How do you know they have
Well, let me
them?
ask you this: as far as the restriction of
Okay, so we go to open carry.
the Social Security Administration using
No,
mental,
that's even worse.
I agree with you. The stigmatizing mental health, that's unfair to many people.
It's unfair to a hell of a lot of people.
You're right, and I agree
But
with
a
that.
lot of people want to do that.
But how many people do you think committed a mass crime, which statistically, it's a white male between what? Their
Yes.
20s and 30s?
It's a lot of people who they know through family abuse.
Do you think they're
Child
mentally
abuse,
ill?
family abuse that should never have a gun.
So
and they get
anybody
them.
that's been abused
They
as a
get
child
'em.
shouldn't have a gun.
No, the ones who do the
and
abuse,
the killers in
Jim.
San Bernardino, were they violent?
We got to wrap
Well,
it up.
speaking of guns, I have a gun to my head to close this
Most of the
segment.
killings are
So
family ones that are multiple
Stay
shootings.
tuned,
You don't see them in
because
the news.
coming up, Tom will lead a discussion about the bond bill surplus and how it may help our region. We'll be back in 3 minutes.
I think that